You just talk. Ready? Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order. Please stand and join me in the flag salute. Hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, roll call.
Johnson.
Here.
Klein.
Here.
Harrison.
Here.
Krim.
Here.
De La Montagne is absent.
Right, I will entertain a motion to approve the PCOE agenda. Move to approve.
Second.
Do I have a first and second? Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All right, PCOE superintendent report. I'll turn it over to you.
Good evening. So for the superintendent's report, I wanted to highlight one of our programs on the county office of ed side with our prevention team and the work that they've been doing. So last summer, the prevention team and myself met with DA Hollister to kind of revamp our whole SAR process. So we worked with him really closely, rebuilt those relationships, and was able to come up with a whole new process and make those adjustments. And then continuing that work with him, we ended up moving our SARB hearings from the district office to the courthouse, which has made a big difference because now in the courthouse, we have one of the rooms in the courthouse. Mr. Hollister's staff comes in and assists with that. So it's just much more formal. We're getting more things done with that process. So we really wanted to thank Mr. Hollister and his office for helping us with that. And part of that process of cleaning up the SARB things is our prevention team also met with our attendance clerks, updated how we do our attendance, cleaned up all of the tabs on how absences are marked. And they went to school sites and helped so that everyone's doing it the same, everyone's reporting out the same, and all of our data is collected at the same time. So that's really cleaned up that whole thing. And the other priority that the prevention team made was they are really trying to work closely with parents and really educate them how we calculate our absences and really explain that whole process to them because sometimes they don't understand that piece as well. And then the other piece I wanted to highlight with them, our prevention team is also part of Friday Night Live. So Courtney shared with me one thing that she really wanted to share that they've been working across the district, that Friday Night Live members across the district are working to create healthier, more positive climates through meaningful prevention and campaigns. They've done things from kindness events and awareness projects, including third-hand smoke and underage drinking, to mental health, first aid trainings along with awareness and quick everyday tools and techniques, to volunteering and peer tutoring, and they do a really nice outreach program with elementary schools as well, where they get to go over and do some peer improvement with them. And so they just really feel like this year they're really making a bigger impact and they're all, wanting to promote the same things through Friday Night Live. One of the biggest pieces for me is we run our community day school on the county office of ed side, and we've extended Friday Night Live with them this year. And they've been able to do activities like cleaning the park. They've been working and donating their time over at the animal shelter, the adoption piece of the animal shelter. And so it's just been really good for our expelled youth as well. So I really want to recognize Courtney and Stephanie for all of their hard work. They work district-wide and it's really starting to show. So I'm really proud of them.
Wonderful. Yeah. Is that the end of your report?
That is the end of my report.
Okay, public comment or input. No action or discussion shall be undertaken on any item not appearing on the posted agenda except members of the board of the Plymouth County Office of Education staff may briefly respond to statements made or questions posed. There is a 3-minute limit. We have the timer just over my shoulder here. And so far I have one person, Alicia Banning, that would like to address the board. Come on up, please.
Thank you. Feel like I'm on a shot clock, but basketball season is over. So I'm actually wanting to talk to the board today about the workload study that has not yet been conducted by PCOE concerning shared staffing. And the reason why I'm concerned about that is because preliminary layoff notices have already gone out to employees without actually knowing for sure what the percentage is between PCOE and PUSD workloads that are impacting the PUSD budget. And I know this is the county meeting, but these two things are very intertwined and can't be separated. And the reason I say that is because I have heard, as reported during the second interim Zoom on Monday, that there's an estimation of about 80% of PCOE, or that PCOE staff are handling about 80% of their day, handling unified school district issues. But without a workload study being conducted, how do we know that's true? And this has clearly been going on for many years. Which also brings me to the memorandum of understanding between PCOE and PUSD concerning that shared staffing. Has the county office considered restructuring that MOU to absorb some of the PUSD expenses? For example, moving certain staff from PUSD payroll onto PCOE payroll, nurses would be appropriate, speech language pathologists, anything so that we can help close that gap, that $1.5 million that's still sitting out there that needs to be cut without interrupting services to students. And so this is common in counties, Office of Eds, all up and down the state, particularly in rural communities where county offices may serve these tiny micro school districts. With us being a single, we are the sole responsibility of county office to help us out. And it's just one of those things where I'm confused as to why that has not been considered or why we're not having those discussions. And I know you can't answer that from the dais. So if we could please get a copy of that. I've requested that through the district office just a couple of days ago, but I would like to see a copy of that so that we can look at how can the unions work with the county office and with the unified school district in restructuring that so that we can save some jobs, uninterrupt services going out to students, and have a better, stable district. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there any other public input? Okay, I will move on. All right, an amended schedule for the remaining regular PCOE board meetings for 2026. Ms. White, did you want to discuss?
Oh, sure.
Highlight what's different?
Sure. So we are needing to amend our board meeting schedule that we had approved back in December. Looking at our schedule that we had, the April board meeting was supposed to be scheduled during spring break. We didn't think that that was appropriate or fair because our staff and everyone is on vacation.
Sure.
So we'd like to move that the following week to the 15th. And then we're asking to move the December one because where it is scheduled right now, we need to move it a week earlier to make our reports in time for the state.
Yeah, we have a statutory deadline of December 15th to adopt first interim. And so the board meeting was scheduled after that. So we had to hold a special board meeting this year. So by moving
To
it,
avoid a special board
we
meeting.
won't have to do a special board meeting.
Okay. You need a motion.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'll move to
It's an
approve
action.
as submitted. Is there a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Barbara, I will be gone on April 15th, so we'll try to have a quorum, I'm sure, without me, but that's just fine. Okay, moving along, policy revisions. Ms. White, will you highlight us for what?
Yes, and just a quick explanation, we are going to start approving our policies on the county side and the district side. That's one of the things in our comprehensive report from FICMAT. We should have our own set on the county as well as the district. So we're starting that process now. So you'll see these again on the district side as well. But our recommendation is to approve the policies as presented. And just as a reminder, these are the ones that are provided to us from CSBA that gives us all of our revisions that keep us up with the laws. So.
I'll move to approve the whole list as they were provided to us.
Is there a second?
Discussion first, or do I need a second for discussion? I apologize.
Yeah.
I should know. So I'll second.
All right, and now discussion.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So on a handful of them, they were just done only a couple years ago, and so there's already changes within, I mean, and I'm seeing like 2 words.
Yep.
So, and I'm assuming that means there's that much of an issue with it. But then some of them were from like 2009. Okay. So just making sure I am, because the other, it looked like it was more clerical type stuff than it was a whole lot of legal language. And so I guess I'm just kind of curious why that would be so.
It's everything in CSBA. It's a term.
Okay. And,
Yeah.
okay,
Sometimes the equivalents are like will or shall.
got it, okay. And that's, I mean, and that's over my head on a lot of it.
Because may and
And,
shall will change a lot of.
and I think the only other one was the differential graduation, because there was a pretty decent category put in there. And so is there any thoughts, so the differential graduation and competence for disabilities? So, because there's quite a bit of new language in there, and again, that's over my head, so I just want to make sure that.
Regarding the alternate path to diploma.
Say that again, sorry.
Regarding the alternate path to diploma for students who meet eligibility for that, so it's basically lowering the graduation requirements to the state minimum versus what the district has above and beyond for students who meet eligibility for that.
Okay, so the added language doesn't, is it changing what's happening for our students right now? Okay.
No, it's just.
Now it's just
making
more
sure.
legal information in here. Okay, I just noticed a lot of input on that.
Yeah, and that's been in effect for a couple of years, but as things, change, different case law happens, it's updating to make sure it's the most compliant that we have right now.
Okay.
Any further discussion?
There's a clarifier right
We can have one.
now. Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, moving along to fiscal. For item A, PCOE 2024-2025 audit report. The recommendation is that we accept the final 2024-25 audit report.
Yeah, so this was presented at our last board meeting, but looking back, no action was actually taken, so we do need to have action to accept the presented audit.
I will entertain a motion to accept the presented audit.
Make a motion to approve. Accept. I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, I didn't ask for discussion, I apologize. Is there any discussion? Okay, fine. Done. All right, item B, PCOE, second interim financial report. Turn it over to you, Stephanie.
Yes. I just realized you see that screen?
No.
No. I'm happy to come sit in the audience.
Huh?
Yeah,
So sit back there, so the audience can see.
everybody will see it?
Yeah.
We can move over there.
Probably easier so they
Then they won't be able to see.
But
I think if you just tilt it,
Let's
you can
still
have
tilt
more
it that way, back toward, like you.
Yeah,
put it
Jason's
back.
corner.
There you go, yep, good, you can see it, that's good.
Excellent. Hi. All right, so today we're going to talk about second interim for PCOE budget. Once I get my presentation up. Awesome. Okay, so the last time we were here talking about budget reports was that first interim, right? First interim was our year-to-date activity up until October 31st. So now that we're in second interim, this is going to be an updated report from activity up until January 31st. All right, so we are transitioning through our budgeting cycle. This reason why we're required to do interim reports are because of this ed code. Okay, so we do 2 interim reports a year, as I just mentioned. The first one is first interim, which is really the first time we check in after our budget's adopted in June. And that is actuals up until October 31st. So it really is your first snapshot of enrollment, staffing, right? How does the year actually start out? We call it our true budget. So then second interim is really the halfway mark of our year. It's all the actuals up until January 31st. So we say half the year has happened, where are our projections currently? Okay. Another point that by January 31st, we do also have the first glimpse of a governor's budget for the next fiscal year. This is really important when it comes to our multi-year projection to understand where do we think the state budget is going to go for future years. Okay. So, apparently I did not change the title, I apologize. should say second interim. But they have the same purpose, which is where we are here to say, where are our current projections looking for revenue, staffing, ratios, all of these different things that happen throughout the year. But instead of saying, how do we think the year started, this is halfway through, so how do we think it'll change for the remainder half of this year? The next time we report doesn't happen until estimated actuals, which happens when we propose our budget for the 26-27 school year. And so this is our last opportunity to really make any drastic changes that need to happen before those deadlines exist, right? Really make sure it's a red flag situation on if we need to make adjustments. Okay, helpful acronyms that always get brought up when we talk about budgeting, right? And just always an education when we establish our budget reports. So ADA is average daily attendance, which is a formula based off of certification, 2 certification marks during the school year, which is P1, which is a projection of how we think student attendance will be that year. And then P2 is our certification of where we're actually funded at. There is also a P annual, which is how the whole year ended up looking like, and only a few funding models use that, which is lottery, which is for instructional materials. But ADA is butts and seats, kids showing up to school. COLA is the cost of living adjustment, which is used at the state level to adjust for governmental spending. It is not based on, it's not a cost index, it's actually governmental spending placements. So what happens is when the governor adopts his budget, he can add a COLA to state funded revenues. We rarely get to see the impacts of that as the district we have is a basic aid district, so we're mostly funded from property taxes, but the COLA does impact more than just LCFF funding. It also impacts ELOP and other state funded programs. So a COLA is a rate that does get set when the governor adopts his budget. LCAP and LCFF are interlinked. LCAP is required to be adopted when we adopt our budget, outlining how we will spend our supplemental and concentrated grants on high need students. The county office does not get supplemental and concentrated grants, but because we do share an LCAP as a single with the district, we do follow the same population and goals and actions as the district. So it is a joint LCAP that happens through the district and county office. LCFF is the funding formula for public schools. The funding formula here is different than a district. We get funded off of ADA for not only our county office, but ADA from the district and the charter authorization. On top of that, LCFF also gives additional funding from property taxes and a per district rate. So if we had more districts, we get additional district grants. And then on top of that, when we get designated as differential assisted on the district side, so we get additional funding to support the district through DA. Multi-year projections is where we say count our current year obligations and 2 subsequent years, which allows us to see how our spending can impact over the next 2 years. SACS is the account code structure we use to have universal reporting to the state. So all school districts use this as a reporting model. It can get big, it can get small, but for the most part, there are manual required codes that we use to track and report all of our budgetary and actual documentation. Additionally, it's also the SACS forms is what all of those extra forms are in your budget packet, right? So it's all those universal forms that takes all of our different financial softwares and puts it into one form that can be compared across the state. UPC is an unduplicated pupil count, and also UPP is a unduplicated pupil percentage. They populate the same students, which are high need students, which are foster youth, homeless, and low income and English learners. So that's our population of how we're able to get additional funding. For example, our LCFF equity multiplier, if a school district or county office program has more than 75% of a UPP, we get that grant, right? So there's different tiers of funding that occur when we have a higher percentage because those students have already been marked that they need additional support. So those funds should go to those students with additional needs. And then UTK is the new transition into transitional kindergarten, which is allowing 4-year-olds into our school system at a younger age. Terms and definitions, again, SACS is that required state reporting software, which is when I say SACS forms, SACS form 1, SACS form, 14. All of those are the universal forms we use to report. Cash is about actually what we have in the bank, which is very different than budget, where we're projecting what we think we're going to be getting. So having cash on hand and budget are not the same thing, which is why we do project a cash flow report in our packet in addition to all the other forms that we do, which are budget-based, right? It's about being able to actually pay our bills at the time. Actuals is when we have a budget, but then this is what actually happened. And so we use the comparison there as well of saying what's actually been paid and what revenues have been deposited into the bank. Encumbrances mean that we have a PO that is tied to a planned expenditure. So that is when we earmark saying we know these funds are going to be spent from this budget line, even though we haven't received an invoice or written a check yet. Okay, so encumbrances are really important because we're able to track what our spending balance is versus what a true balance is of additional earmarking money down the line. Okay. Unrestricted and restricted is really important to understand. We have two separate funding inside of every school budget. Unrestricted means that it's at the discretion of the county office, where we're able to say this is made for general operating, right? This is made for operational costs of staffing, utilities, whatever you need to do to run your program. Restricted is when we get grants or other restricted resources that have to be tied to an allowable expense. So we can't spend restricted money on whatever we want. We have to spend it on however it's earmarked for when it's given to us through apportionment, grant notification. CDE has always a list of allowable expenses when it comes from restricted side. So that's why we separate them, because one, we don't get to have as much control over, and the other one is really our general operating budget. Okay, I'd just like to highlight some county-supported programs and services on the county side. These are all the programs that we support either directly on the county side or programs and services that support the district. So we have lots of amazing programs that are funded through grants and also our general operating budget. An update, we do spend 26% of our operating actually on PCOE operations, 41% of our budget is interagency build back, and 33% of our budget is grant funded. The county office has a lot of grants, and we use a lot of our programs to do our shared single format. And to speak about grants, this is a list of the PCOE grants that we use to fund our restricted programs. All right, so second interim, let's find our check mark, right? I think that this is a really helpful image because it shows a very physical way of how we are doing compared to our adopted, to our first interim, and then second interim. And so when we go into the details here, we saw in our revenue that we had a very small increase on our LCFF. And that's just because we had P1 certification, which is our first time having certified ADA. This is not what we will be funded at, but it is a good check-in point to see how we're doing at the P1 certification. Federal revenues, we did have a grant that was federally funded that actually expired, and so that grant money was removed since we didn't get a re-up on that grant. And then some small adjustments with title allocations. Again, title funds are funded off of P2, so we don't actually know what our final certification will be until that is finalized. But we get to see with P1 where we think we are. And then state revenues, same thing with lottery and cost mandate, we update with P1 certification. We received an actual GAN notification from an annual CTE grant, and so we update our revenues once we get that GAN letter, since we just make projections until we receive that. We also have new grants that we're working with. We have a math professional development partnership grant with Shasta County Office of Ed, and a North State Together program through Shasta College. So those additional revenues that we just received jumped our state revenues up. Next are our expenditures. So our expenditures, you can see that our unrestricted expending is minimally different. I wish that the pointer works, but on the screens, the little red thing doesn't show up. So you'll see that there's really very little difference between our unrestricted. I'll explain what those variances are, but we do see that our restricted is increased in our spending because we're working really hard to ensure that we're building out budgets to our grants. There were a few grants that had no budgets built into them, and so we've been working incredibly closely to ensure that if we have a grant that we're building a budget, providing services, and trying to spend them in the time that they are created to be spent in. Okay, so the very small changes that we saw in certificated and classified staff is because we did have that grant that expired and we did not receive this year. So all the extra duty that was planned for those has been removed from certificated salaries. The classified budgets was, again, a community schools partnership grant that was expiring. We spent as much as we could from it this year and just needed to remove the other budgets that we didn't quite get to because of the expiration of those funds. And then we have vacant position eliminations. Similarly, books and supplies variance is this grant. And then in services, we have determined grants that we have on the county office side that we needed to build budgets for, now that we know how we wanted to use them. Some of these even expire this year, but a lot of them did increase our services. And when it comes to services, I want to make it very clear, services mean anything that's non-tangible, right? Supplies are things you can touch. Services means just anything that is not physical. So it doesn't actually mean when we say servicing, they're not contract consulting agreements. There may be some in there, but that is not what that whole budget is. It is just subscriptions, partnerships, anything. And if we hire and work with another county office and they provide us services of a person coming in and helping us, it does get filed under a 5800, which is services and contracts. Okay, these are the grants that will be expiring at the end of this year. It's a lot. So we're making sure to maximize their usage. Some of them have already had very little funds left over this year that we're just making sure that we get every penny out of them. And so in our multi-year projection, you will see a decrease in our restricted funding, and that is because of all these grants that will be expiring at the end of this year. While the fiscal stabilization plan is something that happened on the PUSD side, there were some impacts that happened that impacts the PCOE side. So reductions that were already included on the PCOE side that affected the 25-26 budget were the elimination of the director of HR, our consolidation of the HR supervisor and HR specialist, the reduction of our assistant superintendent to a director position, a SASA position moved to a program accountant, an elimination of an administrative assistant, and a reduction of the SASA to a payroll specialist. So these were already included, but they were outlined in the PUSD fiscal stabilization plan, so I wanted to outline them here as well. Included is a reduction of force on the county office side. We do have about 3 FTE reduction, and then we did do a elimination of about 4 FTE. And these are classified positions which will be accounted for in the multi-year projection. So when you see those decreased salaries, that is because it impacts our plan for layoffs when it comes to our classified positions. So we did go ahead and see the governor's proposal in January. We just did second interim here, and the next time that you'll see me is when we get the revision from the governor, right? He gets to update his plan to tell us how next year is going to work. That May revision is what we use to adopt our budget for next year. Okay, the governor adopts his budget at the exact same time we do, so we have to just use his most accurate information. And then once we adopt our budget and he adopts his budget, if there's any drastic changes, we get a 45-day revision. We get to come forward and give an informational that says, hey, some really big changes happened. Right, we're gonna have to make some adjustments to our budget. If not, the next time is that first interim, where we get to see our true budget for the 26-27 school year. And, nope, I'm going the wrong way. And that is second interim presentation.
Thank you.
Questions?
Okay, Sorry, there's,
Sorry,
go ahead.
sorry, it just took me a minute to get rid of my notes. So when you said, so the CLSD grant, so that's not applicable, we can't apply for that one again?
No, it was a Title II grant, or hard to say Title II. It was a federal grant they did give us during COVID. It was a special grant and it expired. Yeah.
So it's one of those, the COVID ones.
Yeah, I think there was some discussion about potentially it being extended, which is always a hope. But they really did put a stop on extending those deadlines. So.
Anything else, Jason?
Not that I can ask right now, I need to do more.
Okay, Cindy, do you have a question?
Yeah, so since the Office of Education has so much more money compared to PUSD, I think something that Ms. Banning brought up was, why couldn't we move nurses, you know, that are working on campus with children, special ed employees, things like that? Why couldn't we move them over?
It would need to be
the count, so that you're kind of helping us from drowning while you're floating happily. Does that make sense?
Us as a county office.
Yeah,
So I believe, we are looking at the MOU, which was mentioned. We're looking at it. We're trying to establish resources that need to go there. It's really important that we tailor our decision-making for both the longevity of both organizations. And so we will continue to establish those plans, and anywhere that we can, we will make sure that occurs. However, the transferring of those things would need to be a decision and a collaboration across both districts.
and has that been considered?
We are considering every single option across the board.
So a work study workload has been,
No, we have an immense amount of vacancies, which make a work study, we're waiting until we can at least try to get some of those vacancies filled, or it would be really inaccurate at this time. For example, I've got 2 vacancies in my office that had to be re-established. We took those workloads and spread them out across current staffing, and so their time study wouldn't make any sense. It would be additional workloads that don't correlate with their current job duties, so assigning them a percentage based off of that would be inaccurate. However, we are planning it, and we work closely with FICMAT and CDE. They also are helping us establish when we can build one of those out. And so the MOU is an ongoing process that we hope to make accurate as possible.
A quick grant question on the PCOE side. So for those dozen or so grants that expired and we're not eligible for anymore, or no one's eligible for anymore, depending on what happened, who is our grant specialist right now? Who does that fall on?
We have a grant coordinator.
Okay.
But her job is to help manage them. We had a lot of grants.
Good.
And a lot of them had to be returned because of lack of use and other things like that. So our goal has been to ensure that we're maximizing the grants we currently have. I'm gonna be honest, a lot of people didn't want to give us grants because of that, because we weren't spending them. And so while we are developing those strong leadership and plans, then we get to start applying. I know that Andrea is applying for grants, and that we've even got approved for new ones. So we're constantly looking for ways to prioritize and leverage grants, but remembering that grants sometimes have hidden things, like a lot of hidden things. And so matches, or it's an implementation, but then it's done in a year, or we thought we could generate money from this. For example, the CSYBHI, yeah, that one. We were promised that the way that they would work would be all this funding.
Right.
And turns out, not true. And a lot of people are struggling to even get close to the funding that they thought they were
Well, and
going
I'm
to
not
be.
suggesting that we apply for everything. I mean, it has to be a good fit, but I just want to tell you, that was my job for the Office of Ed 25 years ago, and I'm happy to help.
Yeah.
No, we're trying to really focus in on the grants that actually will benefit us. When I came on, I was handed a ton of grants because it looked like they applied for everything possible.
Right.
And what we're finding is a lot of those grants cost you a lot of money up front, or you have to hire people to fulfill those
Or the
grants.
match is unreasonable.
Yeah, so there's that piece of it, but our grant coordinator who oversees and does all the reporting, does everything to the state. We sent her to a training, to work specifically on grants for rules.
First.
So we are
Okay.
focusing in on that to make it more productive.
If there's any way I can help, I'm happy to do that. That was my job here 25 years ago. I know that's a long time ago and things have changed, but I'm happy to help. But then again, all the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So many ways.
So, and I'm assuming that a lot of those grants that we apply for have that person's salary built into that grant, the admin side of it. So the grant person is paid through it.
Only after you're funded.
Okay, so not for the writing side of it, but the administration or the administering side of it would be covered by that grant that we get for that person who's handling all the grants?
If the person is, if we have to hire a person to do specific work for whatever grant it is, they would be paid out.
So, but you said we have a specific person right now that
We have a
is
grant
managing.
coordinator.
Right,
Does all the reporting.
and so do those grants pay for her?
It's parts
Yeah.
of the grants.
Parts of them, okay. And then
Not all grants allow us to put people in them.
got it,
Wish.
right? Yeah, and I think that was gonna be my question, was kind of in that sense where there's all these grants and then if we don't have them, how many, is that a person? Or is that someone where we have a single person that has multiple jobs and that's just one of that person's job?
Yeah, and an example on the district side, is the wellness coach. Like, we could have, but couldn't find qualified. The qualifications to do that job were so specific that it ended up not being what we hoped it was going to be. And so we just, sometimes it can look really awesome and get really complicated on the back end. But we will continue to look for those revenues.
So then, well, since you brought that one up, specific, so then we have, is there state required positions that we have to have that we were trying to get paid for by a grant and now those grants didn't qualify, so we still have to have the person and?
No, you don't want to use one-time money to pay for an ongoing expense.
Fair enough.
So, we work with that, there isn't if it's,
Because the wellness coaches, we could use that one as an example, so that's not one that we have to have.
No.
Yeah, but it is a benefit.
it's an extra, yeah.
Okay. And that was on our side? It was on the PUSD side, the wellness one, okay.
Oh, wait, opposite, PCOE, it is ours,
Okay,
but we have the employee.
Okay, so since the county office does have reserves well above the minimum, state minimum, has there been any option that has been evaluated to allow the county to stabilize classroom staffing while the district completes its fiscal recovery plan?
No.
Is there a reason why?
County office cannot fund a district. We can fund specific support programs, but we cannot fund the district, and we can't use our money to fund the district.
Right, I understand that, but there's certain ways that you can get around that, right?
We have asked, CD, Big Fund, it is not an option for us. No, its county offices have a very specific role to play, and it is not to fund a district. We can do a TRAN, which is a temporary cash loan, so if the district struggles to pay something because we're waiting for our property taxes, they can borrow money from the district, which is why we have our resolution to support if they needed to borrow cash from us. But the cash would need to be paid back in 120 days due to the trans.
oh, when I looked, it said at least within 2 years.
Yeah, it depends. So you never want it to carry over a year. You have to do like a repayment plan that exists. They try to do 120 days because it would be longer.
Right, because since they only pay every 6 months, that would be very difficult for us, for that. So when I looked, I saw that it said within a year, but no more than a year and a half, so I was just, so.
And for us, when it comes to supporting our district, because really the only cash struggles that occur is because waiting for the property taxes, that there would never need to be a need for that long of a cash loan.
Okay, and we're not seeing that kind of opportunity for this next year?
No.
Okay.
But we do, it's important to note that the PUSD there is no fiscal help for a county office. What we have is what we have, that is it. The only legislation that exists is for districts. And so by allowing us to be able to support the district when it comes to cash, if needed, since we have a history of not being able to support our cash flow, then, that's what that earmark is for a TRAN. But there is no help for what the district got on the county office side.
What is the plan with the 500,000 that is in Fund 1?
Do you wanna? elaborate on that? What 500, it's all Fund 1, everything we've talked about is Fund 1.
So is there 500,000 that I heard you discuss on the, your web thing the other day?
Sorry, do you want,
Was it a reserve that we established?
It was you were gonna move it to,
Yeah, the economic uncertainties,
you know what I'm talking about.
maybe?
oh, yeah, so PCOE is not allowed to have a Fund 17. The district has a special reserve fund that you should keep. For example, we used it to support the district. To keep, county offices can't have special reserve funds. So we just earmarked 15% of our reserve under that resolution that was established to ensure for economic uncertainty and protect our cash reserves if it ever is needed. Which is estimated around $1 million.
For the year, right, yeah, okay.
And that doesn't increase, if that's 15%, that's 15%, we don't put any more money in that reserve spot, it's just whatever the 15% is gets earmarked for that. Not quite sure what the 5,000, but does that you think, what potentially?
Oh, I have another question.
Okay.
I had to write all that. Okay, so what I would like to see is for you to be able to suspend any future purchase orders to shift the remaining funds to offset any potential layoffs.
Okay. I hear your request.
No reply, just I hear you.
Well, I mean, that would mean that we would stop having power and, services and reimbursement for driving and student supports and supplies for classrooms, and so I don't feel like that's an equitable or fair choice for our programs, but
Any checks?
No, I didn't say that. Any say an expensive computer program or something like that. I think all of that should be halted until.
Like a purchasing priority list.
Yes.
Where it makes sense.
We're doing that.
we're already doing that, we've done that since last year, yeah.
And has that offset any?
Yeah, you see that we've had significant decreases in our spending.
Anything else? Well done. All right, so there is a recommendation or a request rather, for approval of the second interim financial report is presented. Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Is there a second?
I second with a question. I say with a question. So, discussion. Well, ish. So one of the things that I guess I am a little confused on is not specifically on the payroll side, but associated with the, with us approving a second interim, are we still in an opportunity to change an MOU within this school year?
You're always allowed, I mean, it depends
Okay.
on the MOU, but as long as there's a clause for revision.
Okay, and so that's what I would like to see happen, is for us to discuss and start really identifying that MOU. Because I know we got some information about it, and I just feel like I still don't really understand, and I haven't seen it. And I know I've asked for it even before this administration and still hadn't gotten it yet. So I'd really like to really understand before, because I know you're giving us a whole lot of information and really trying to absorb it all, and especially with how many documents are here, and you give great presentations. I think I feel, because it does keep coming up, and it has come up in multiple, what do we pay, and then feel very responsible for how everything is happening on the PUSD side, that I feel just extremely concerned of feeling like I still don't understand the whole picture. And so I want to make sure that as we move forward with an interim, that there is still room for adjustments, or does this have to wait until even the following school year to make another adjustment?
An interim is just a snapshot report.
Okay.
It's not even, you're not even really, it sounds kind of, not really even approving it. right? The only thing you really approved was the budget itself, that we are now just giving updates on how the spending on the budget exists.
We do make adjustments on the budget.
Yes, and we
Okay.
even make the adjustments outside of interim reports. The interim reports is just a snapshot of all the changes that happened until October 31st and then January 31st. Budgets are live. They're
Okay,
live
that's what I-
documents that totally can get updated whenever we see fit, as long as we have backup and buy-in and everything that exists, yeah.
Okay, and that's how I felt a budget worked, right? But we've said many times that school districts are different.
Yeah.
And they're unusual and it's its own world, and that has been said many, many times, and I wanna make sure I'm not misunderstanding that this is another one of those, it's its own world.
No, it's just a budget, yeah.
Okay. So, thank you, I
Yeah, the only
appreciate
thing we
that.
couldn't do is like all of a sudden, outside of the layoff process, change staffing, right? So
Fair.
that would be the only restriction, or if we have a contract that has no cancellation,
Okay,
right? Which we've been really leveraging the district situation to get out of a lot of our contracts.
contract, okay.
Been working really hard on that.
So is that something that we can get so we can see that? Because I
Like
didn't even know
for-
where which ones we're getting out of and that kind of stuff. Because are they services that actually are affecting our kids that we're
No,
trying to get
I mean,
out of?
like, for example, well, I can only think of one on the district side, but
Okay.
like for the lift for the transportation department, that was gonna be half a $500,000.
Okay.
Because we're leveraging that, they're trying to push back on a cancellation fee, but we are
Right.
trying to work with that. So, you know, if we can, we're really looking at every single contract that exists for the district.
Appreciate, thank you.
So we have a first and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No,
Cindy, you're gonna,
I'm gonna hold off because I'm not,
fine.
I have some concerns.
Okay.
Thanks.
So the vote is 3-1, Barb, you could write that down. Okay. The next, item, CSEA 230 AB 1200 Public Disclosure Act. There is an attached to our minutes, the public disclosure.
Yeah, so
Go ahead.
this is just a document that shows if we can fiscally meet the tentative agreement that is set with our union.
Okay.
This is reviewed by CDE, and we have to get approval for that from them before we bring it forward to ratify a TA.
Okay. Is there a motion for approval?
I make a motion to approve.
Do you have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, item D, CSEA 230 tentative agreement.
Yes, so this is, we were able to settle on the 25-26 CSEA 230, which is our classified union. And so this is the TA, the tentative agreement outlining those settlements.
Wonderful. I've read the document. Is there a motion to approve the attached tentative agreement?
I'll move to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Cindy, you got it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, for information only, the PCOE service contracts, anything to add? And any discussion from this board? We're not approving anything. The PCO personnel items, again, information only. The PCOE check register. Nothing? Any questions, any discussion? No? All right, the consent items, minutes from the 2/11/26 board meeting.
I'll move to approve as submitted.
Okay.
First and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, any future agenda items? I will adjourn the PCOE regular governing board meeting. Thank you.
All righty, we'll go ahead and get started. We'll call to order the PUSD regular board meeting at this time. And please join me for the flag salute. And ready to salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
County Administrator Richard DeMarney,
Present.
PCOE Superintendent Andrea White.
Present.
All right, we will start off with our educational partner update. Andrea White. We'll approve the agenda first, though, before we do that. Okay. So this is an action item, and approve the agenda as it is submitted. And now we'll go to the educational partners update.
Our educational partnership update tonight includes our information sheets that we're sending out. We're going to be sending out informational sheets every Monday because the district remains committed to transparency and open communication with both staff and families. As a part of this commitment, we are distributing a series of informational sheets designed to provide clear updates and ensure our community stays well informed. These information sheets can be found on our fiscal update webpage. They are also sent directly to staff through email and to families through Parent Square. If at any time you receive one of these information sheets and have questions, please feel free to reach out to Rich or myself. Our upcoming FCMAT schedule. So as you know, part of our receivership is to be a part of the comprehensive report. For us to move out of receivership and for our board to come back and have power, we have to pass this comprehensive report. So they're coming back for year 2 to check in for the comprehensive report. So we now have those dates. So we'll have human resources will be here May 12th through the 13th, followed by facilities May 13th through the 15th. Pupil achievement review will take place May 19th through the 21st, and finance will occur through May 26th through the 28th. The final review areas would be community relations and governance, and that will be held June 1st through the 2nd. During some of these FCMAT visits, we may ask staff and stakeholders to volunteer to participate in interviews or check-in meetings with FCMAT that they may request. We will share additional information. It'll happen like last year. We'll send out a Google Form survey where you can submit that you would like to be a part of that process. Once we have those final schedules, we will be sending that out. And then just as a reminder, this is a board meeting held in public. Public comment is your opportunity to share your views on agenda items. Under the Brown Act, the board members may not engage in dialogue with the public during this time. If you ask a question, we cannot respond during public comment. Please note that the speaker time limit of 3 minutes is monitored with a limit of 20 minutes per topic. You are encouraged to always email your questions after the meeting if you have more questions that you would like answered and would like a full response. And also always feel free to reach out to the office when the agenda is posted to get clarification before the meetings if you would like as well. That's all I have tonight.
Thank you. Okay, and for our presentation, we have Quincy Junior Senior High School Principal, Mr. Hopkins, and we'll turn it over to you.
Tonight, I'd like to recognize Paige Crespo as part of our principal's recognition to the board. Paige is also joined by her mom, Christy, her sisters Faith, Madison, and Bailey, and her grandparents. Paige is the kind of student who is involved, dependable, and always willing to contribute to our school community. She's an active member of our student leadership program where she helps organize activities, bring positive energy to our campus. Paige also serves on the principal's advisory, where she provides thoughtful input and represents students' voices voices in conversations about our school. On top of that, she was a member of our girls' soccer team, showing the same commitment and teamwork on the field that she brings to the classroom. What stands out most about Paige is her positive attitude and the way she leads by example. She works hard, supports her peers, and consistently represents Quincy Junior Senior High School in a way that makes us proud. She plans to attend Cal Poly Humboldt next fall to study biology. Paige, thank you for everything you contribute to our school community. We're proud to recognize you tonight.
Congratulations. Congratulations, Paige. Thank you.
I'm also pleased tonight to recognize Marisa Lurch, our AP Government, Economics, and World History teacher, as part of our teacher feature. Ms. Lurch does an outstanding job helping students connect what they learn in the classroom to the real world. In her classes, students are not just memorizing facts about history or government, they're learning how to think critically, evaluate information, and engage thoughtfully in the issues shaping our society. One of the things that stands out most about Ms. Lurch is her ability to guide objective, respectful discussions around current and complex topics, which is especially important in today's politically charged climate. She creates a classroom environment where students feel comfortable sharing ideas, asking questions, and learning how to listen to different perspectives while staying focused on evidence and respectful dialogue. Her AP courses challenge students academically while also preparing them to be informed, thoughtful citizens. Mrs. Lurch's passion for teaching and commitment to her students make a lasting impression both inside and outside the classroom. We're fortunate to have educators like Ms. Lurch helping prepare our students not only for college, but for meaningful participation in their communities and our democracy.
So when Jason asked me to speak, I wasn't sure what to talk about, so I asked the students what elements of the class they enjoy the most. And there were some common themes. They said they like knowing what's going on in the world, and they also like having a chance to talk to each other, and they like our daily reviews. And so I just brought a couple of slides to show you what we do that capture those elements. Thank you.
Oh, I just turned it on.
Got it. Okay, so this is just a slide from a couple of months ago, and you can see there's a link there. Oftentimes we start class with a link to something that is going on in the world, and in this case I asked students to identify which side spoke to them more, which side they seemed to agree with more, and why, and then I asked them to put themselves in the shoes of somebody on the other side and try to identify why somebody might come to another conclusion. We oftentimes follow that up with something we call 60-second philosophers, where we have students hop up and find somebody else in the room and have a conversation with them about where they landed on that topic. Something else students said that they really enjoy is our daily reviews to help them remember whatever those important concepts are from day or the week or the unit. And so I took away the animation, but oftentimes we find a way to gamify our quick review at the start of class because they're so competitive, and that creates emotion, and emotion helps them remember what it is they're learning. And then we're on for the rest of the class. So anyway, those were just a couple of things that students spoke to, and I appreciate having the time to come to work there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for Mr. Hawkins and Marisa, we really appreciate you. At this point, we will go into public comment, and I'll announce 3 names, and so just be ready for the next one to come up. So it's 3 minutes, and so our first speaker is Devin Craig. Come on up.
Hello, everybody.
Don't think so.
I'm quiet. Sorry. I'm a teacher, I shouldn't be.
Yeah. I get it.
But hi, my name is Devin Craig. I work at Chester Junior Senior High School. I teach English and history. I have to speak today to express my feelings about the layoffs of the district, but also to present at least one alternative to making deep cuts, which I did email you about. Well, we cannot afford to lose staff at our schools. We cannot afford to continually push out new talent in these aging schools in an aging district. In my 4 years in the district, I've seen the passion of experienced teachers diminished by ongoing negligence and mismanagement by the district office. And I've spoken to my peers about what happened before. For decades now, this district has been in a cycle of budgetary issues and layoffs. For each round erodes the talent, passion, and institutional knowledge of our district, subsequently undermining the quality of education and services provided by our schools. Now, you're here, Richard DeVarney. My hope is that you can find a way to change this long-standing pattern of erosion and start to build again. How, might you ask? One idea that proved to work in Batesville School District in Arkansas turned $250,000 deficit into a $1.8 million surplus in a matter of 3 years using solar farms. That's a net gain of $2 million. Not only could we save on energy, and we already have started doing this at certain sites, but if we have a surplus of power and batteries, we could potentially generate revenue by selling power back to the power companies. This was such an effective strategy that 20 other school districts have since followed suit with similar results. Let's do this. You have said we have some land. Let's use it to generate revenue rather than selling it for a quick buck, because as you've said, what we need is structural fixes, not one-time influxes or one-time costs. The best way we could would be to seek grants for funding for the panels. I've done a little bit of initial research, but I'd be happy to do more. Use open space in our schools, or room space and open land. We need to reach out to our community as well. We need to propose bonds to the county board. We need to make sure our building department operates with maximum efficiency. We're getting every single federal dollar and state dollar that we can. And I believe we can do this, all of this without cutting almost a third of our classified staff, and without cutting almost a fifth of our certificated staff. It will take some creativity and gumption. However, with the substantial salary we are paying you, it's more than reasonable to ask you to seek this out and make them happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Felicia Dutton and Melissa Groh, and then Stephen Trujillo.
Driving here today, I got in my own head. With so many cuts to make, is it selfish to take 3 minutes to talk about just libraries? But one of my jobs at Portola High School is archiving. And looking at yearbooks that go back over 100 years, one thing they have pictures of is libraries. This is a heavy torch to carry. Looking like any librarian, starting out in this district, looking at an archaic job description from 2001 isn't going to be much help. What I was told by the librarians whose footsteps I followed in was to keep libraries relevant so that they can never be cut. Because once they are gone, you will never get them back. This is a heavy task to carry. It's why you see my face over and over. Because defending a position has nothing to do with me. It's about these students. Originally, I was going to spend my time describing what librarians do, because we're not often invited to the table to have those discussions. Instead, I'm going to say, come to our table and let us tell you what we do. Here, I'm going to use my time advocating for the students that we serve, for the avid readers, the college-bound, who want to fulfill their AP reading list during break. They join book clubs, they meet all of their reading goals. Libraries push these students with access to challenging titles. I facilitated book clubs at the elementary school, junior high, and high school level, and no member was ever more endearing than the student who read far below her grade level and just needed a positive place to belong, to carry around a big chapter book, and to be included. Today I advocate for her and the club members that included her. For the readers who don't want to choose a book in front of their classmates or can't make a decision when everyone is looking at them. At Portola High School, we have a 24-hour search where they can have a book delivered to them in a brown bag. For the students, the reading might be a metaphorical escape from what meets them in the hallways or at home, and a library is their physical escape. We advocate for students who might not be interested in reading at all, but with a district-wide cell phone ban, that come to the library at lunchtime, play Jenga, sit on a couch, look each other in the eye, and talk. Remember COVID? Wasn't that long ago, we yearned for students to be able to connect. Or when they just had their face down in a phone, now they're talking. These are important social interactions, and I advocate for the opportunity for students to gather in the library and just be kids. For students who have arrived speaking no English, and they graduate fluent in 2 languages. These amazing students with access, who needed access to materials while getting their feet under them. And for understanding that when you take while you take a book home in English to learn, nothing can replace the importance of having your parents read to you while you're curled up in their lap. And these moments require a book in their home language. For these students and their parents, we advocate for you. For the student who asked me, can you give me a motorcycle book on that book wish list? And that didn't seem like a conventional thing to order for a library. That student learned to fix a motorcycle with his hands. And for that student, that was an important learning moment. For the students that need a safe spot to cry, those stories are too personal to share here. But that quiet space when things are overwhelming or overstimulating in other places, the library is a space for you. Some students find a sense of belonging on a field or a court. Others feel them in other places. Maybe contributing to an ofrenda and talking about grief and the joy of remembering. By building community within our school, by interacting with each other, these moments are important and they are relevant. For the student who hates reading, and for every student in between, we advocate and we keep trying for you. Because when I stand here, I'm not talking about librarian jobs. I'm not just talking about libraries, I'm talking about these students, especially in our rural community, especially where the economics are real, where food scarcity and gas prices and transportation issues are real. We need these important staff members who continue to support students, classified and certificated staff members. Librarians are something you can find to fit in your budget. We're literally the cheapest employee on the pay scale. Sure, every drop helps, but the tasks that will have to be moved to other employees, the hole that you will create, is far larger than that drop that you will save. Today, next meeting, the meeting after that, I'll be here to continue to advocate for the libraries we know are essential and the librarians that make these spaces relevant. We are a part of the team of PUSD teachers and classified staff that supports student learning. Please retain libraries and librarians in PUSD because the gravity of it haunts me. Once something is gone, you will never get it back. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Melissa Grow, and I've been an educator within Plumas Unified for 23 years. I raised my kids here. They all attended PUSD schools. My grandkids also all attend PUSD schools. I believe firmly that the way forward that we need to be pursuing is for all of us. When I say all of us, I mean PUSD board members, superintendent, CSCA, CTA, our county board, to work together with state legislators to change the broken funding mechanism in California. And if we don't, we're in this situation, and my heart is sad. I don't want layoffs. But here's where we're at. And if we don't pursue that avenue vigorously, and all of us working together. Not just you, not just me, it's all of us working together to make some lasting statewide change. I believe that we can do that because it's not okay to not have equitable funding in all districts statewide. That's not okay. It's not okay that the state didn't rattle our cage harder when they didn't receive an audit report. And multiple audit reports were, late. That's not okay. It's not okay that on top of what we're having to draw down on the loan, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that we have to pay state employees' salaries on top of that as well. That, the percentages that we have to pay on the loan, it's like how do we get out? It's really hard. And to see that, I really believe that we can do it if we collaboratively work together on this. And we get in our cars and we go down to the state and we all make our voices heard at the state level. Let's be the ones to change what's going on in California. Because you look in the news and you see lots of districts are struggling to meet their financial needs. Thank you.
Stephen Trujillo, Stuart Clark, and Alicia Banning.
Okay, hello, my name is Stephen Trujillo. I'm a fourth grade teacher at Quincy Elementary School. And I just want to share some of the questions that have been coming up of people telling me, so I'm going to ask you. On these questions, I'm hoping that you could give a specific reply, not anything very general, but really more specific.
We can't reply to.
I mean, I know, I understand.
Oh, I got it, okay.
In the future,
Sure.
whenever.
Absolutely.
So, for example, one of the things that I have gotten or heard of is that what's going on with the district as far as the cutbacks and what have you, that there hasn't been any kind of consultation or communication with the teachers union. And so my question is, why does that not happen? Why is the, I don't know how you'd say your board or what have you, why are you not directly talking and consulting with the teachers union? One of the reasons I say that is because, for example, when COVID happened, someone brought to my attention that as we were the teachers working directly with the students, we were the ones that should have been consulted first. And it seems like if everything that happened, I think that if teachers would have been consulted because we were the ones working directly with the problem, we probably could have alleviated a lot of problems that did happen during COVID. Secondly, I want to ask that, again, these are just impressions of people asking me these questions. Why will the County Board of Education not help the district? Specifically, for example, I know comments are coming up about the libraries. I want to comment that for the many years that I've been teaching at Quincy Elementary School, this year and the last few years, I think, we have had one of the best librarians that we have ever had. And because of the cutbacks, we're going to lose that. And we're not talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, possibly, maybe, specifically maybe $100,000 just to keep the librarians in the whole district. So my question is, why could not the county help with that? And one analogy that I would give is, it's almost like I feel like our district is on fire and the county is our neighbor, and they've got all this water, but they don't want to give us any. And and I know that I understand that all kinds of rules and procedures have to happen, but this is an emergency, and it would be nice if some of those rules and regulations could be dealt with during this time of our house being on fire. And then the last thing I wanted to say is that I haven't really heard anything addressed to what's gonna happen in the future. And one of the big things that I've heard kind of like is what we anticipate happening is that all of these cuts will happen, all of these people will be let go, everybody will be gone, and then in August, when the new hires happen, there won't be anybody to hire. So for example, when all of these cuts are gone and all these people are gone, and then, you know, it's time to recruit or get new people to fill the positions, they won't be able to because the people will be gone. So I'm just, again, that's a really big concern. And then lastly, how are we going to not only retain the people that we have, but bring in new people? Because, I don't know, I just think it'll be interesting. In my mind, I picture, you know, at the hiring process, you know, you're in the interview and they might ask like, well, when, you know, they always say, do you have any questions? And they might say, well, what do you mean you don't have buses? What do you mean you don't have a bus service? What do you mean you don't have a library? What do you mean you don't have this and that? I mean, how are you going to recruit a new teacher to come into your district when they start learning that you don't have any of this stuff? So I just think that whatever cuts are made need to be very deliberate and very strategic, very exact, almost like with laser focus. Because again, all of these things that are happening, I think they could hurt us in the future.
Thank you.
I'm going to do you a favor and make sure that I make it under 3 minutes.
Thank you very much, appreciate that.
Stu Clark, Vice President of PCTA. This is not one of my favorite monthly activities, but it's essential. Tonight's reflection. There are two sides to a superintendent's job. One, balance a budget so that the educational goals that are set get met. You are keenly focused on that. It's super clear. That's appreciated. There's another side though, and it's an equally important value. Build and support a team that can accomplish those goals. I hate to say this, but you are failing miserably on that one. These people don't trust that you care. These people, and many that I talk to in the public, they don't believe it. Some of the signs that you're seeing up, some of them were posted right out here by this rock. I know, I put them in myself. They are not political. Look at them. These are not political signs. These are positive things that say kids need this. What were we instructed to do? Take them down. We have done so. They are down. It's more of the same. We make IEFA requests and hear crickets. We ask for information that we are legally entitled to so that we can bargain for our members, and we do not get it. There are times that I do get, and I today received an immediate response to a question I had. Thank you.
You're welcome.
We must collaborate if we are to have a district that will thrive. You can make it survive by cutting people out, but all you'll do is make it smaller and weaker. But if you sit down at the table with us and listen and respond and have a back and forth discussion, as was just pointed out by two other speakers, we can make this district thrive. Please change course and pay attention to the second item as well. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, so, yeah.
Okay.
I have a lot to say. Obviously, this is my second time at the podium today. My name is Alicia Vanning, and I am the president of the Plymouth County Teachers Association. I don't want to piggyback off too much of what Stu said, but I too was disappointed this morning when I received message that we had to remove the signs that we had created to support students and to make sure that they understood that we were still here and that we're still fighting for them. I'm very disappointed that a lawyer took time to research how to force us to take those down. And that makes me sad. I would hope that if we were putting out messages of support and caring about our students and our staff and our teachers, that would be equally supported by our school district. And I was disappointed to find out that that's not going to happen, okay? So, because we can't have our signs, I have over 100 postcards here with messages of support and asks and begs from our community, from Chester, Portola, Quincy, and Greenville. And I would like for you to take the time to read those. They're still coming in, and I will make sure that I stop by the district office once a week to make sure that you get the new postcards. Please consider talking to us. We have a breadth of knowledge as boots on the ground, as I would have said when I was in the Army. We have experience. We know these kids. We know our communities. We want to talk to you about some alternatives. We know that we can't save every single job, but we want to try. And we want to make sure that these kids go with uninterrupted services, that they get all the support that they can from our public schools. And we also want to make sure that those kids that sit in our libraries with our librarians who are pursuing their dreams through our public school system, that they have an opportunity. Because right now, it's not looking that great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to all of the speakers. Have a few action items here. First, we have an amended schedule for our remaining regular PUSD board meetings. We're changing the April date because of it's during spring break, so we're changing that. And then our December meeting had to be earlier to meet state deadlines, so that's just procedural change of our schedule. So any public comment on that? With that, I will approve the amended schedule for the 26 school year, the remainder. Good. All right. And then we're to fiscal. So we are gonna go through our second interim financial report, and this is an action item, and I'll introduce Stephanie.
Hi. Can everyone hear me? Everybody, microphone.
Use the mic, please use the
Okay,
mic.
absolutely. Sounds good. All right. So today we'll be presenting the second interim for PUSD. So last time we are here in the budget cycle. As a reminder, I just like to show this when I start my presentations to show us, you know, it is a continual process between current year, prior year, and future year. This report is about current year. And so the process really for second interim is about identifying where we were on January 31st. Okay, so we do a second interim, we do both interim reports because of Ed Code. Ed Code allows us to be able to understand our fiscal obligations for current year and then 2 subsequent years. This is where we're able to see red flags and opportunities for improvement because that third year really tells us the story of our spending. So first interim is about all the actuals up to October 31st. Second interim is actuals up to January 31st, which is halfway through the year, which allows us to really show where is our spending and where can it go. The purpose of second interim is to not only provide our oversight and our board an update to yearly assessment of the district's condition, but it's also a way for us to update our approved budget to show where we have the most accurate information. Where's our current enrollment? Where's our staffing? What is our spending? Was there a large increase in utility costs? Was there an unexpected repair? This allows us to update our budget, which is a live document that should be updated as we get new information. And also it allows us to show if our current spending can be sustained through future years. Helpful acronyms are ADA, which is our average daily attendance. That's butts and seats for students. We're funded off of this rate for specific grants, but as a basic aid school, we don't actually get funded off of ADA for our LCFF, but there are other grants that are funded from this formula. COLA is a cost of living adjustment, which often is used to increase the base funding in our LCFF, but as a basic aid school, again, this COLA does not increase our LCFF funding enough to impact our revenue lines. However, it can impact other grants that we have, and this is set by the state on an annual basis. So in the governor's budget, he will tell us what his current year plan and what his 2 subsequent plan years are for this COLA percentage. We use these as they're updated throughout the state and supported by the LOA. LCAP is our local control accountability plan. This is adopted with our annual budget. It outlines how we're spending our supplemental and concentration grants, which is an additional amount that we get based to support our high-need students. High-need students are outlined as foster youth, homeless, low income, and English learners. So because these are our high-need students, we get additional monies to support them in that. So this document allows us to earmark and plan in with collaboration with teachers, staff, and our community. LCFF is how we are, the state's attempt to fund us equitably across all school sites. And so again, because our threshold for property taxes is higher than our apportionment through LCFF, we do get considered basic aid. However, we still do get about $1.3 million off of a base grant from our LCFF calculation. Multi-year projection, it's all about showing current and 2 subsequent years. And it's required part of all reporting to show that not only we are able to meet our obligations, but that the future can also meet their obligations. SACS forms are forms where we took a standard accounting structure, and all California schools use this structure, regardless of the financial software you use. And then it gets imported into a universal software where it turns into our SACS forms. Those forms are the same across every school district, and so it allows the state to analyze our budgets universally. UPC and UPP is that percentage that is based off of our high-need students. This is used when we have our CalPAD certification and allows our funding formulas for those who use a UPC count to be calculated. For example, our LCFF equity multiplier, if you have over 70% UPC count, you qualify for that grant. If you don't hit that threshold, you don't qualify for that grant. And so it is another threshold to help support our high-need students. Other terms and definitions that we talk about a lot when it talks about our budget is SACS forms. Again, it's not just our account structure, it's also our software that we report to the state. Cash. Cash is cash on hand. This is checks that we have received and is in our bank, okay, which is very different from our budget. The district has suffered with both deficit spending of a negative ending fund balance, which is a budget issue, and also a cash flow issue. And so sometimes you can have negative cash but a positive fund balance, and sometimes you can have a negative fund balance but positive cash. They correlate in just the assumption that we're trying to predict, but they do not always align because budgets are about predicting revenue and expenditures. Actuals is how we show exactly what we spent out of our planned expenditures. So checks written, revenues received. Encumbrances is where we talk about the earmarking of funds. So in our budget models, we see that when you submit a vendor requisition and we give you a PO, those funds are saying they are accounted for, okay? And so by having the PO, we know that we know that balance is a true balance, not something that was planned, but not encumbered. And so encumbrances is really important when it comes to our budget modeling. Once it's paid, it turns into an actual. Another key distinction term is unrestricted and restricted. Our budgets are separated between an unrestricted side and a restricted side. This is because they have completely 2 different requirements for spending. Our unrestricted side is to operate our budget. That means just paying bills and things that exist. And so the goal here, and also our fiscal stabilization plan, is about balancing our unrestricted spending. The restricted side is where we get grants and funding from the state or federal government that have very specific purposes that we are allowed to spend it for. And so we are tied to how that grant allows us to spend our money, which is why we hold it in a separate column, because unlike on the unrestricted side, deficit spending is a no-go. On the restricted side, we receive multi-year grant cash upfront sometimes. So what this does is allows us to spend deficit because we got a 5-year grant in year 1, but we need to make expenditures out in year 3, 4, and 5. So deficit spending in restricted is common because of the way that restricted monies are funded. Just an update on our enrollment ADA and UPC counts. So our ADA projections based off of P1 ADA certification is 1,428.55, and that is about a 91.99% ADA. Note that ADA, this is not the ADA we will be funded off of for specific grants that qualify for ADA funding. That will happen at P2 certification, which will happen later in the year. Our enrollment numbers that we use for all of our projections from here on out are these CalPADS fall certification numbers. While our enrollment fluctuates all the time on a daily basis, we are as a district held into a Fall 1 certification. So from Fall 1 certification, this is our enrollment number. This is our student unduplicated pupil percentage. This will be the numbers that sustain throughout the entire year. So we use this model just to kind of show visually the spending differences between the 3 reporting periods so far in 25-26. As you can see, we have in first interim, this is our revenue. So our revenue in the restricted side seems very flat. There's some small adjustments which I'll outline, but really our grants have been allocated. So there's very little change. In our second interim, we do see an increase in second interim reporting. And if you see the colors, you can see that increase comes from our LCFF. So this was a surprise at P1 certification. We did see an increase of 9.47 of our property taxes. This is a high increase. This is $1.26 million. At first interim, we projected to see an increase of approximately 4%, and this was 4.5% higher than what we were projecting. We have seen historically that property taxes here fluctuate significantly. There was one year it was less than 1%, and there was another year it was 16%. So we're working really hard to see over the last, I've gone back 15 years, to see how we can try to track and plan for these certifications. And so we'll continue working with the county to try to get more accurate numbers for our taxes so that we know how we're supposed to predict our spending and our revenue streams. Note that in our multi-year projection, an assumption for our property taxes, due to what I've seen historically, it will continue to only be 4%. If that changes, as we see numbers, that will change in our multi-year projection. But it's better to be conservative in revenue streams than over-predict and then have to create cuts out of bad revenue projections. On the expenditure side, you can see that on our unrestricted side, there is some reductions in our spending and also reductions in our restricted side as well. Some key components of these reductions was that we did have a resolution of clearing vacancies that we knew we were not going to continue. Vacancy savings mean that we're halfway through the year. If we have a sub filling in for a teacher, I'm not going to keep the teacher budget for the whole year, right? So we make reductions based off of what actually happens and then try to create trends of what will happen in the future. So we look at current year sub hours, we look at extra duty, and we look over the past few years and see if we're on trend, under trend, and if we can try to update that to predict how the last 6 months will be of school. These are the same reductions that also exist on the classified side due to position elimination, vacancy savings, and sub and extra duty trends. Also, any adjustments to grants go in here too. So grants are allowed to shift their spending, right? Like maybe we did plan on extra duty, but instead they decided to bring in a speaker for the kids, right? We work closely with our program heads to determine how they're gonna spend their grant funds within the allowed amount. Books and supplies decreased by about $1 million. We have updated to ensure that our grant budgets and program review. So what we do is we go to our program heads and we say, hey, this is how much you had budgeted for this year. You are halfway through the year. Do you think you're gonna spend that remaining amount, or can we release it? And so we've had these conversations, we continue to have these conversations, and we'll update our budgets as we move forward. Same for our services. I will say there was a reduction in services of 5,800, but we did have an increase in repairs. And I just want to create a difference between supplies and services, that services encompass anything that is not physical. Anything, subscriptions, memberships, agreements, travel, anything that is not, anything that is not physical. When it comes to books and supplies, we're talking about anything that's tangible. Is it a textbook? Is it a material? Is it a pencil, a notepad, a computer, whatever it is. And so those are the two distinctions between books and supplies. Even though 5,800, Object 5,800 says professional services and contracts, it really does encompass an immense amount of unphysical things. Again, we continue to update as we, sometimes what happens, like you earmarked $50 for books, but then you decided you wanted to bring in a speaker. Again, that shift, that budget transfers happen often. All right, so a few other definitions I think moving into the second half of the presentation is a reminder that budgets are planned revenue and expenditures based on assumptions. And then deficit is when we're spending more in expenditures than we're receiving in revenue, which again, as I said, in an unrestricted model, most likely that is, it's on purpose and it's built to do that. On the unrestricted side, this is normally a red flag. This means you're spending outside of your revenue limits. A structural deficit means that year over year, you've continually overspent, which then drove down your ending fund balance, which was what allowed the PUSD to end up in a negative certification. So at adopted, we had a negative deficit of $7.6 million. At second interim, we have a positive of 3.5. Please note, this is because we received a one-time advance apportionment from CDE for $8.5 million, okay? We did not fix our structural deficit problem in current year, but we do acknowledge that there is a positive in our excess between our revenues due to the $8.5 million.
I'm just thinking about the shady.
You need sunglasses.
Boo. Okay, found it. Sorry. Okay, there we go. Okay, so another point that we, one of the things that we had to incorporate in our second interim is our fiscal stabilization plan. And so the reason we need to show our fiscal stabilization is because we are in state receivership. Emergency apportionment and receivership happened because we were unable to meet our cash obligations in September of 2025. With the projections of that, we were able to make a request from the state to get an emergency apportionment for state approved up to $20 million under AB 121. We had to draw down an initial $8.5 million to allow for ongoing operations. This is when we identified our structural deficit of $9.5 million. So, a reminder that the apportionment is not a friendly, here's the money kind of situation. We do have a 6.4% interest rate over 30 years. Because we're basic aid, we did have to get a larger year term because we only have $1.3 million in apportionment annually. So they only can give us up to an amount that they can take away from us. So if we were to take the full $20 million, it would be $25.9 million in interest, equaling a total payback cost of $45.9 million. With our first drawdown of only 8.5, we still will be paying $11 million in interest. We are planning on starting our annual payments back to the state at $65,000 annually. We do not make this payment, they just take it from us in our principal apportionment. This is just something I showed during our fiscal stabilization plan to kind of show where we were. At 24-25 adopted budget, we were positive in our ending fund balance. Our first few triggers here were first interim, second interim, and third interim showing continual negative ending fund balance. At our adopted budget, this continued as we saw operational costs, and you see it goes down is because we do still have to pay obligations of cost index, the raises that are built into salary schedules, and so on and so forth. So we see it decreasing significantly again. And then boom, unaudited actuals for 24-25, we were able to get a Fund 17, which is that special reserve fund that you choose to set aside for these emergency situations. This is why Fund 17 is an important part when you're in fiscal good health to set aside, because then it brought us back into a positive and we were able to continue to meet our fiscal obligations before drawing down the $8.5 million. If we did not have this Fund 17, we would have not been able, we would have had to take that drawdown beginning of this year. At first interim, we saw it was again a positive ending fund balance because of receiving the $8.5 million. So at first interim, we reported that if we continued going at the same pace that we were going at, we were going to be millions of dollars negative again, and then in the third year, significant deficit spending. But at first interim, with our adoption of the fiscal stabilization plan, we can see that second interim ended up slightly higher due to other reductions in our increase in revenue. It's important to note that that property tax increase does make a difference to our bottom line. Then we have the reduction plan put into place for 26-27. This allowed us to end in positive. However, we do deficit spend slightly again in the third year, as we still do have $1.5 million in our projection for reductions. You can see that we go back to deficit spending, which drops us back down in our third year. However, positive ending fund balance. So this is our deficit spending structure here. As you can see, what was shown on that chart was that we will be currently projected to excess spend of $5.4 million in 25-26, excess spend $700,000, and then deficit spend in 27-28. These numbers still exist with the $8.5 million increase, right? So it's really important to note that we seem to be evening out on our ending fund balance, but that's because we have already a large starting ending fund balance. So all reductions that were outlined and presented into the from the fiscal stabilization plan at current projections. Please note that those projections will change as we go through the layoff process. We don't actually know who the layoffs will impact, so it does change the overall spending. But from our current projections, the goal was to hit 9.5. Our fiscal stabilization plan showed $8 million of savings, and our second interim shows $7.26 million in savings. You're saying that's not $8 million? Yes, that's because we did have the increase of the payment back for the loan. So we would be at 7.9 exactly if we were to not have to start paying back our fiscal loan. Another obligation that's required of us is to hit a 3% minimum reserve, which means that we don't just have to be a positive ending fund balance, we have to have at least 3% over that for fiscal uncertainty. This is a state requirement. So when you're looking at this, you may say, that is significantly over your 3%. Yes, because we received a one-time $8.5 million loan. Without that loan, current year spending, we would have a negative ending fund balance, and we would not be able to meet our fiscal obligations, and we would have to have another increase of $1 million to meet that fiscal obligation. So what's really misleading in our fiscal reports is that it looks like we're really healthy. But we're healthy only in number, because we had that one-time influx. Really, the golden rule of budgeting is that one-time money should go to one-time expenditures. If we continue to spend ongoing expenses with one-time money, we have to go back to the table and make reductions when that money goes away. And so our goal here has been, with the fiscal stabilization plan, has been to show that our ongoing expenses are balancing. So, and the 3% is that the safety net is for cash flow, right? We are a basic aid school. If we do not keep cash on hand, we will have to take a loan from someone. All right, so that was second interim. where this will be our last interim report for this year. The next time that you will see updates are from the May revision, where the governor will tell us how he thinks revisions are needed for his proposed budget for 25-26, which then is the assumptions we use to adopt our 25-26 budget. And that is it.
Thank you, Stephanie. All righty. Is there any public comment on the second interim financial report?
I have a, does that include transportation costs in your budget?
Second. What's that?
I can't respond. It's public comment, I can't respond.
Oh. Okay. Yes, that's all included in there.
And so cutting the transportation, am I correct that transportation will be cut down to where only special ed children will be able to have rides, transportation to and from school?
That's the plan at this time.
What?
That is the plan at this time.
Okay, so what has the district done to, I mean, do you realize how many children will not be able to go to school if they do not have transportation to and from school? Especially out in our area. It takes me almost 30 minutes to get my grandchildren to school. So there's many families out there that either work or do not have vehicles to transport their children. So won't that really affect them, you know?
It's a difficult cut, for sure.
And so what do you want us to tell the families? Sorry, no us either?
Yeah, that's not the only thing that we're cutting that's difficult on kids and families. It's just one of them, unfortunately.
In vein with the same comment, I am curious as to if the ADA, the average daily attendance, is so critical to the budget, how on earth can you not get these kids to school? I mean, you're cutting off your nose to spite your face.
So the ADA part, getting kids to school, is more about getting them to their education. In a basic aid school district, is not as significant. So if we were in a regular school district, we'd be losing, say, $10,000 or $12,000 per student for every student that we don't have. In our situation, there isn't that significant loss on the financial end. On the other end, it is, we absolutely want kids to be at school. So financially, it's not as significant, but from an educational standpoint, it certainly is.
Do you want us to come up to the mic so that everyone can hear?
Sure.
Okay.
What's that?
You're not supposed to be talking.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
just
it just,
comment.
well,
Okay, well, so is it true if we find $270,000 in ongoing dollars, we would not have a structural deficit in 27-28? Just something to think about.
okay, thanks. Anything else? Thank you, Stephanie. As far as the second interim report, I will approve that report as reported. Where am I? I can't see.
We are on B.
Where are we? Okay. Signature authority. So for the Feather River Adult School, our Plymouth bank account, Andrea.
Yes, we need to request that the board review and approve changes to the authorized signatures on the Feather River Adult Schools bank account with Plymouth Bank. This update is necessary due to staffing changes. The current authorized signers need to be removed. Lisa Cavan, former CBO, Mallory Marin, former CBO, and Brad Miller, former lead adult ed teacher. We are proposing for new authorized signers to be added, which would include Steve Dutton, who is the lead adult ed teacher, and April Bott, the SASA in the business office.
Any public comment? Okay, we will move to update the signature authorization for the Feather River Adult School. home to school transportation plan. This is an action item. Stephanie.
Yes, annually, we're required to adopt a home to school transportation plan before April 1st. This allows us to opt in for an opportunity of 60% reimbursement. The district has not met this deadline before, so we will now be able to, if we can, qualify for 60% reimbursement. This will be an annual plan that gets updated.
Great, thank you. Big benefit. Comment? The action item, will approve the home to school transportation plan. And policy revisions, this has to do with updating our district policies in regards to CSBA recommendations. And so Jessica?
I'm just seeking approval tonight for the attached policies as presented.
Okay, any public comment? Okay, we'll approve those policies as presented. And the last, or there at the end there is staff, PUSD personnel transactions, and this is a action item.
Yes, we're seeking approval for the HR agenda as presented.
Any public comment? All right, we will approve the personnel transactions as presented, and the consent agenda. It includes the minutes from the February 11th meeting, minutes from February 25th, the check register month for February 26th, the PUSD service contracts, and field trips. And if there's no public comment, we will approve the consent items. There are no future items for agenda items at this time. So with that, we will adjourn the meeting. Thank you for being here.
Sorry.